So, for the past couple of days, the Mortal Kombat 11 online stress test had been going on, and I honestly had so much fun with it, more than with any other game I've played recently, and it's nice to finally be able to play a game after following it for so long. Today I want to basically talk about how I feel about the game, from the gameplay to the online. I'll try not to harp on anything for too long, so I'll just get to the main points, so let's not waste any more time and get right into it. So first off, let me talk about the goal of this stress test, to see how the online holds up. And I've got to say that the online in this game is really good. Now, there was no way to play offline until the very end of the test, and I didn't play it, so there's no way for me to tell you guys how the game feels without any sort of delays, but everything feels really responsive in a vast majority of the matches I had played. I'd say out of 130 matches, 95% of them ran extremely well with no hiccups. I could pull off all of my chains, do wake ups, the movement felt good, the normals felt responsive. There were hardly any games where my rhythm was thrown off because of connection. I'm not sure what NetherRealm did here, but whatever it is, it works, and for that alone, I have to say that MK11 passed its online stress test. Maybe that could change when more people get to play it in about a week and a half when the closed pre-order beta rolls around, but I don't think that'll be the case. Now on to the actual fighting. I'm not going to lie, at first I was a little hesitant since this game feels so much different than the last entry, MKX, where MKX opted for a much faster paced, high damage approach with people sprinting across screen, going for overhead lows and putting people in blenders. MK11 slows things down to have more grounded footsie based fights, and I really thought this would be a bad thing since I enjoyed the constant 30 to 40% combos that could happen at any time in MKX, but I mean, it really works for this game. It's a lot more fun than I thought it would be. You're constantly working to put yourself in the right spot to land an attack or counter your opponent, all while trying to read what your opponent will do next. You need to learn what each character's strings are, what's safe, what isn't, when you should use either one of your meters, how to walk into your opponent's danger zone and make them whiff, all of that stuff. It's so much more different than the previous entry, and I thought that it wouldn't work, but it does. It really is a lot of fun and is going to be great for people who enjoy the slower style. There's still what you would expect from a Mortal Kombat game, but NetherRealm decided to tweak some things. You now have 2 meters, an offensive meter and a defensive meter, which are always charging. There are the crushing blows, which have certain requirements to trigger, but once landed you get that X-ray effect and can usually extend your combo or be granted some extra damage. Fatal Blow is what the X-rays were in MKX, but this time around you can only access it once your health drops below 30% and you can only land it one time in a match. Attacks are enhanced shortly after your special start rather than being armored on startup or anything like that, and the breaker has been changed, wake-ups have changed, and just a lot has changed. And while I like most of it, there are a few issues that the game is currently facing. The first thing you'll hear about when someone brings up MK11, other than how beautiful it is how slow it is. And we're not talking about how sprinting has been removed. The game as a whole just feels a bit heavier. Dashing is unnecessarily slow. It's slower than just walking, which could and probably will be fixed by the time the game releases, with Ed Boon already speaking on it, so I'm not too worried about that. I like the walking speed. You can confidently move in and out of range, and I'm glad that running is gone, but I'd actually love to be able to dash out of range and punish someone for whiffing. Another thing I noticed is how a lot of the attack startups are really noticeable, and that's not a bad thing, but there's not a lot of strings that people use because of how the game is played. Granted, this was a stress test and only 3 characters were available, but once you started fighting against people that knew the strings and they knew what they were doing, you would start to notice that everyone was doing the exact same thing. Some attacks just weren't worth using because they were unsafe and punishable, so you'd be doing a lot of the same things and looking out for a bunch of the same thing. And I feel that this could also happen in the full game with all the characters once you get to know them. And since you basically always have meter, you would punish someone's mistake and then go into whatever meter burn combo your character had, and you would do this over and over. There's not a lot of variety in the combos and the strings in this beta that could open someone up. The ones that did have overheads or lows had very distinct and noticeable startups, so they weren't too hard to block if you're paying attention. This isn't the biggest thing in the world, but I do miss having fun with my combos and using my character's entire kit and landing a long, satisfying combo that I had practiced, and I hope that is something that NetherRealm looks into and improves upon. What's in the game now though is still a ton of fun, although this is the first time I've gotten to play, so there's still the novelty of the combat. Now onto the defensive side of things. So for the most part you'll still be blocking by holding a single button and blocking high or low, so you're not really worried about cross-ups or anything like that. But there are a few things that makes defense more interesting. There's the perfect block, which is sort of like a parry where you'll block at a specific timing and can counter with an up 2 or an up 3, I think, which I didn't think about too often in the middle of a fight, but I feel that better players will really be able to pull these off pretty consistently, especially since you're not really opening yourself up as it is done with the block button. There's the wake up attacks, which have replaced the armored EX wake ups of the past and allow you to try and escape some knockdown setups. There's the wake up roll to escape pressure, and then there's a new combo breaker, which at first I didn't mind until I saw what you could do with it. So for some reason you can be punished for starting a combo if your opponent decides to break it. For example, right here, I'm going for a combo after launching my opponent. He can choose to drop out just before I throw my spear if he knows I'm going to throw my spear, and while I'm caught in the whiff recovery, I can be punished by his fatal blow. And I noticed this would happen more and more as I fought better and better opponents, so sometimes I would just stop my combo after the jab so that I wouldn't get punished. I'm not sure if NetherRealm thought this would add a layer of complexity or depth to the game, but I feel that the opponent shouldn't be rewarded for making a mistake or getting caught. As much as people don't like it, I'd rather have the old combo breaker return. And speaking of defense, I do want to say really fast that maybe they should look into chip kills too, only because I also miss the moments of surviving with only a tiny bit of health left. It's much harder to do that when you can be hit by attacks that aren't easy to get away from by movement. You can't dash away from anything since dashing is so slow, so attacks like Scorpion's teleport, while easy to block, will kill you with chip. Other than those issues though, the game is a lot of fun. I can't wait for the next beta, which hopefully allows us to play more characters, and I'm hoping they try some things out because it's just the beta. As for everything else though, it's top notch. Presentation wise, Mortal Kombat 11 is beautiful. We thought MKX looked good, this game somehow tops that. The two stages we've seen look and play great, the fatalities and brutalities look excellent. Just visually, this game is gorgeous across the board and is one of the best looking fighting games I've ever played. The only bug I ever encountered in this beta was during one of the brutalities. Scorpion's skeleton would clip through his body, but it only lasted for like 1 second, so it's not that big of a deal. The game also sounds excellent, attacks still have that same crunchiness from the previous game, and blocked attacks still have a prominent thud, which all helps you make a decision during a fight. The voice acting is still really enjoyable, as the little interactions and taunts the characters have before a match and between rounds are always fun to listen to, and there are just so many. There's also much more customization in this game, with a bunch of different outfits and colors, along with being able to choose different gear styles like masks, blades, and character specific items. NetherRealm games always outdo themselves with their presentation, and MK11 is no exception. Everything outside of the fighting moves so fast as well. Menus are snappy and the game loads up in literally seconds. From the moment you find an opponent, it tells you their record, your chance of winning, the ping, even whether or not they're playing over Wi-Fi or wired. Then you move into character select, where you choose one of the 3 preset variations or play with one of your own custom variations, which is something I was skeptical of at first, but after I saw how it works, it makes perfect sense and lets you play in whatever style you want. Some variation options are better than others, and I don't think that will really change. Like, if you're using Scarlet, currently why wouldn't you use Cell Siphon, as it's just a really powerful tool? I think in doing it this way, rather than just having the 3 set variations, it gives NetherRealm the option to add in more attacks and variation options over time. I'm not sure if they'll actually do this or not, but the opportunity is there, and I feel that it can make the game a lot more interesting and make people want to come back after they've burned out. It would also make the game a lot more fun to watch, as I personally loved watching MKX tournaments and whatnot. It's always fun watching the pros play characters at a high level, and I think that having more to do with each character would do well for this game currently. Otherwise, fights will be sort of predictable from a viewer standpoint. Of course, we know that the players that are playing in these tournaments are playing mind games with each other, trying to catch one another make a mistake, but for someone watching at home, we know exactly what they'll do once they finally land an attack. We'll see the optimal combo from that particular situation. And if one character is extremely popular or really good for how this game plays, then we could see a lot of the same thing. Now, some people really love that kind of stuff, but what made MKX so exciting to watch was the creativity of the players and how they were pulling these things off with these variations after trapping someone in a corner and hitting them with a 23 hit, 48% combo to come back and win the game. That could happen in MK11, but I think it will require the use of the crushing blows, but those are situational, and I think that they can only be used once in a game. I don't know, I think it'll still be interesting to watch, but I do wish that the characters could do a little more. Overall though, I think the game is a ton of fun, and if you like fighting games, you should definitely give this game a shot, as it really is just a great game despite it having a few flaws, but no fighting game will ever be perfect, especially if you're trying to innovate or try something new. If you're not a huge fan of spacing and all of that, I still think you should give this game a try, as I personally don't really like walking in and out and playing footsies the entire match, but I really had fun doing it here. I found that my most flashy games were not my favorite. I was having more fun playing against an opponent who knew when and when not to attack and how to move around, while we were both just whittling each other down until the end of a round where you had to make the right decision and read what your opponent was going to do. That's when MK11 was at its best for me, and I'm not a long-time fighting game savant. I'm just a dude that likes playing and watching fighting games. Anyways, that's all I've got for this video. I've been waiting to play this game for a long time, and now I can't wait until I can play it again. I'm really shocked at how good the online play was and how this game is actually a lot better than I thought it would be. I will continue to make videos like this. The next one will probably be on that game from Software, Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. That is, if I enjoy it or find it interesting. As usual though, I do want to hear from you guys, so talk to me down in the comments about anything I talked about in this video. And as always, if you like the video, feel free to like something new, and I'll talk to you guys in the next video.
Fatality. Scorpion wins.